Can you believe we're still getting upgrades for the 2025 season? Because I cannot. And these upgrades are championship defining, specifically from the Red Bull team, who will have the most amount of upgrades in these last GPs. Now, there are some upgrades from midfield teams that I do want to go over. Also, flexi-wings are apparently back. I do want to talk about that as well, because that could make a difference for a team that did pretty damn good in Singapore. And then of course, this video is going to be a combined of COTA upgrades and Mexico upgrades, because altogether we can talk about it. There's not that much to cover. One team will be the main talking point of this video that's going all in on 2025. You've heard that plenty. We'll go over some of the rumors, but then I'll also go over what I know and what I've heard. But with that said, make sure you make your way to Unchained Media Inc. It is another race weekend to make predictions. Go ahead and drop them. That would mean a lot to me. Let's get started with this video. Now, as I stated, there's a couple of midfield teams that announced upgrades for COTA so much earlier in the season. I'm talking like right after we finished the summer break. Those two midfield teams is Haas and Sauber. They were very early to announce that they weren't done with upgrades. Now, Sauber's been a bit on the back foot for a while now. Ever since the summer break ended, they've came back, very hard to score points. Bortoleto did a great job in Monza. Nico had a good drive till he spun off in Singapore. But other than that, you can tell the car has taken a couple of steps back. Now, with that said, this was supposed to be a big upgrade. Have they gone back on that? Will they still introduce it in COTA? We'll have to see. I'm expecting something towards the floor. That's where they've made a big difference in the season. I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with James Key still being the technical director there. He's done a good job, and he's definitely elevated the car more than I suspected in the season. So even if they go on to score no more points and they still fight around that P10 position, I think it's been pretty good for Sauber. The upgrades they brought, they've worked, which we could not say the same for in 2023 and 2022. 24, they brought a big floor upgrade that made a difference. Let's see if they try and go for that again. Those low downforce tracks typically have not suited the car very well. Only Monza worked out for one reason or another. It's the high downforce tracks where they've been pretty good, like in Hungary. COTA is a bit in the middle. Let's see if they can make a bit of a comeback. Now, the team I know for sure should be bringing upgrades here is Haas. Just like Sauber, they announced it much earlier in the season that they're bringing a big package to COTA. Typically, this is where they end off their upgrade run every single season. And now, during this whole season, they've had Toyota as the backing, so a lot of these parts have been overlooked by the Toyota team as well. Their upgrades haven't made a big difference to the car. Singapore was good, but a couple of big upgrades they introduced earlier in the season didn't really change the fact that they still have porpoising through high-speed corners, and that the floor hits the ground way too much. Kind of the same issue that Ferrari has, except they kept the previous suspension. Now, it would be big news if this floor upgrade they bring in COTA actually makes a big enough difference that they can fight for points on the regular and maybe go up a couple of positions. It's going to be tough to beat out Aston Martin and Williams and even Racing Bulls, who have a very consistent car from track to track. They're always somewhere around that points range, while Haas, unless they go for a crazy strategy, typically doesn't work out. The strengths in the car actually lie in traction. And a year ago, I probably would have told you this car in reducing drag was amazing, but now I'm not so sure. You never really know what to think of the Haas car. Sector 1 could be a struggle, but I hope for their sake, they make a little bit of a better car. Hopefully they bring a nice little livery for COTA as well, because it's probably going to be one of their last seasons being in the spotlight, being an American team with Cadillac coming in. But now we can talk a little bit about the bigger stuff, the top teams, Ferrari's last little upgrade that's going to be coming, Mercedes' front wing flexing. I want to talk about this. So it is understood apparently that flexi wings are back. Now, there was that TD directive that was put out in Spain of 2025, where it made every team reduce the amount of flexing on the front wing, and visibly you can see how much has changed. Mercedes, I think Aston Martin, and McLaren in particular were all teams that were abusing it. I mean, the wing was flexing to a significant amount. And at that point, the Mercedes car felt like a very well-balanced one. In Bahrain, it looked phenomenal in testing. And now, they have managed to bypass the TD018 flexible front wing checks after introducing something in Singapore to the front wing, which doesn't look like a major change. Very slightly, you can see the upper flap has different curvature than that of before, but even those connectors between the second and the third flap look the same with the one on top. maybe the gap between the connectors on the top flap look a little bit closer. But supposedly it is replicating the same effects pre-Spain flexing. So I'm interested to see if it's going to help them. I'm not sure where a lot of this speculation really of this flexi front wing is coming from. Now, the race has talked about it and a couple of other news outlets. That is what the front wing is now reintroducing to the Mercedes car. If that is so, then I can expect them to fight on a couple of more tracks much better than they were after really that TD kind of ruined a lot of that season and the balance in a very, very strong, very nice to set up Mercedes W16. Now for Ferrari, they've also announced their last upgrade is coming into Mexico, and I'm just going to use this as a way of saying that every team will probably have an upgrade in Mexico. And I use that word upgrade subtly, even though it does make a big difference. We don't really talk about it, but in Mexico, there's big cooling updates that need to be added to the car, so you can actually run that car in a good setup and with significant pace. Cooling upgrades, in my opinion, are actually very underrated on the car. It's how the McLaren got a lot quicker from 23 to 24, even they spoke about it, using a lot of the rear components in the engine cover to extract more air and produce less drag. Now, Ferrari in 24 was dominant in Mexico. Maybe if McLaren qualified a little bit higher and Max didn't hold Lando back for a couple of laps, we could have seen a different race. But they did introduce these huge cooling grates that I think look awesome on the car, makes it look like a shark. And we're going to be seeing this again across the grid on every single team pretty much. For Aston Martin, we've seen kind of what they've done, put it on the side pods a bit. I expect Ferrari to do the same yet again. McLaren's going to open up that rear part of the car as much as they can. With Red Bull, we've also seen that in Singapore. They did the same type of update because it was very hot and humid there. So I'm excited to go over that from Mexico, but that's just what to expect with Ferrari's last upgrade. It's really not going to make that big of a difference. We know this car, the SF25, it's not a fun one to watch. But with that, now we go into the most important team, Red Bull. Now they're going all in for 2025, words from their technical director himself. Now, I've already heard there's not going to be anything introduced in COTA. I just expect them to put the best balanced package they have all together with the amount of front wing updates they've introduced, trying to reduce the drag in the rear part of the car, and so on. But they've confirmed upgrades for the upcoming races. So in Mexico, yeah, again, I expect to see a cooling update. Maybe there's even a picture somewhere on the internet that I can scour around showing how much of the cooling they've already opened up in certain GPs. Monaco, I think, had it the most significant. But Pierre Wache says, not at the next GP, maybe a bit later. Maybe we're compromising a bit of the start of next year. We're fighting for second place in the Constructors' Championship. And he doesn't go on to say, but obviously the drivers, which Lauren Mekis has talked about so much. The team from GP to GP. In Baku, we saw a different front wing. Singapore, yet again, they updated that Hungary front wing to make it work a bit better on the car. It's going over bumps pretty decently. It drives pretty well. Traction is pretty nice, which are all good things if you're a Red Bull fan. They've definitely updated the car and made it much better all around. That cooling package in Mexico is going to be important. Vegas, I know for a fact, is going to have an upgrade on the Red Bull car. Now for Brazil and the other GPs, I don't know yet till we get closer, so you're going to have to stay up to date on the channel. I've already talked about who I suspect will also be probably the front runner for each GP. Go ahead and check that video out. Please go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, it'd mean the world. Check out unchainedmediainc.com, don't disappoint me. And thank you all for the support. Peace.